Welcome to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety, where we talk about the real issues out on the road, focus on safe driving, and learn industry best practices from your hosts Kenny Ray, Mike Bohan, and Jim Seibert, in the hopes that by driving the line, we get more drivers home safe and sound. This podcast was made possible by Marsh McLennan Agency.
Welcome, everybody. You got Mike, Kenny, and Jim here with you today on the podcast, and we are rocking and rolling into the summer months of 2024. And along with that, guys, I was looking at some stats for summer month driving, and I looked at a couple different places. I looked at the Federal Highway Administration's got some interesting vehicle miles traveled stats, and then the National Safety Council has some interesting stats on crashes. But as you look through the year, based on these statistics from the Federal Highway Administration, the vehicle miles traveled tends to peak in the summer months, and specifically peaks in July. January, February, there's not a ton of travel that goes along in those months, and then it starts creeping up, and then May, June, you start to see an increase, and then it peaks in July, and then it starts dropping back down in the fall. And there's several reasons for that. There's vacations, there's recreational travel that happens more in the summer months than other months, things like that. But there's a lot of folks out on the road in the summertime, a lot of different types of vehicles. You've got not just the commercial vehicles that we're talking to on this podcast every day. It's kind of business as usual for you guys. You're running up and down the road anyway. But there's a lot of families out there. You've got SUVs running up down the road with full of families going on vacation. You've got motorcycles out on the road now with the nice weather. So there's just a lot of folks on our roadways. So one of the things that CVSA looked at was scheduling their Operation Safe Driver Week. And it just so happens that they scheduled that in the month of July because, and I don't think that's any coincidence that it would happen to fall within the month. That's when people are out there on the roads the most. So they look at that time period and say, all right, let's schedule this Operation Safe Driver Week. And they do this every year. And we've had a podcast on this before. We talked about this last year during a podcast, but it's something that they hold every year. And basically what it is just increased enforcement and scrutiny around the travel around commercial motor vehicles, because it's not focused necessarily specifically on the commercial motor vehicle itself. It's the traffic around the commercial motor vehicle. So it involves everybody. So if you've got passenger vehicles out there that are operating in an unsafe manner around a commercial motor vehicle, they're going to get to visit with a trooper. They're going to get to visit with a roadside enforcement officer in some way, shape, or form, because that's what they're going to be out there looking for. They're looking for that unsafe behavior out there on the road. And this year, Operation Safe Driver Week is going to be July 7th through the 13th. And again, it's really one of those weeks where the focus is on safe driving around the commercial motor vehicles. Right. And you guys, Kenny, I know you have seen this from a lot of different angles and a lot of different perspectives over the course of your career, working roadside, working at a motor carrier, and then what we do now, working with our clients. It's something that is important, I think, for this industry, that it's not just, hey, we're going to focus on the trucks and their safe behavior, but we're going to focus on all of the traffic around these trucks. Don't you think that's something that's a good message that we get out there to anybody listening to this podcast?
Yeah, no doubt about it, Mike. And that is the one thing that makes this CVSA initiative different from any of the other things they do throughout the year. And they do a lot of things throughout the year. They have special emphasis programs all the time. But just the fact CVSA, commercial vehicles, is what CVSA is known for and what it deals with. And yet you hit the nail on the head. What makes this unique is the interaction between non-commercial traffic and commercial traffic, primarily looking for dangerous driving habits. And in fact, they have a special emphasis every year within Safe Driver Week. And the focus this year is on reckless, careless, and dangerous driving. And, you know, those are kind of vague terms because CVSA does not actually write traffic laws. They enforce, or they have initiatives where traffic laws are enforced. So when you start looking at that focus area of reckless, careless, and dangerous driving, you get down to the state level and say, well, what does each state law say about those particular things? And we've shared oftentimes with our listeners that I'm in Texas, Jim's in Oklahoma, and you're in Missouri. But just for us in Texas, we have a lot of listeners in Texas, but I'll use this simply as an example only. In Texas, the offense of reckless driving, and that is defined in our Texas Transportation Code, there's a specific penalty or consequence. If you're convicted of that offense of reckless driving, you can get a monetary fine, which any of our traffic laws can bring a monetary fine. But what makes this offense different than any other Texas traffic offense is it, in addition, you can get 30 days in a county jail. So it ups the ante, if you will, for the consequences if you're convicted of this offense of reckless driving. The one other thing that makes this unique from my state's perspective, this law is also enforceable on private property, any private property that the public has general access to. So that's primarily things like parking lots. So if you take somebody that decides they're going to get out in the middle of a parking lot and just start cutting donuts on their motorcycle or in their pickup or their car or whatever, a police officer, state trooper can come over there and enforce this law on a private parking lot, just as if you were doing that same activity out on the interstate highway. Now, a lot of our listeners are drivers, professional truck drivers. It doesn't mean they're going to focus just on the four-wheelers that are around your truck. They're going to be watching the general movement of traffic around commercial motor vehicles as those commercial motor vehicles go up and down the highway. And Mike, one other thing, and this kind of always follows the CVSA model. CVSA likes to do education followed by enforcement. And education is often publicity. It's us, what we're doing right now. This is we're educating our listeners about this upcoming event, what it involves, what the focus of it's going to be, what potential consequences there are for it. And we've got a lot of safety directors of trucking companies that listen to Driving the Line. And guys and gals, I want to encourage y'all, use this as a topic at a safety meeting. Talk to your drivers about Safe Driver Week. Publicize it. Put up posters in the driver's room. Put it in your newsletters if you have one. Send it out. However you communicate with your drivers, let them know that this is coming. And so the educational part's on the front end, and then the enforcement actually takes place during that particular week. And Mike, you and I both know, because we find a way almost on every podcast to weave in that the goal of this podcast and the goal of all these traffic safety initiatives across our country is to reduce crashes, and particularly reduce fatal and serious injury crashes. And y'all know, both of y'all know, and our listeners know, I'm fiercely proud to be a Texan, and I'm fiercely proud of my state. But there's some stats from my state that I'm not proud of. We lead the nation in traffic deaths every year, even over and above California. Last year, 2023, there were 3,855 traffic fatality crashes, just the crashes themselves, that resulted in 4,268 people dying, which tells us that many of those crashes were multi-victim crashes. Now, the state of Mississippi leads the country in the number of fatal crashes per 100,000 people population. So nothing for Mississippi to be proud of, but my state leads the nation in the actual total number of people that are killed on our state highways every year. And another stat I've shared before in the past, and the one that I'm probably the least proud of in my state, we have not had a deathless day. Now let this sink in. There's not been a day that the state of Texas has not recorded at least one traffic fatality since November 7th of 2000, 24 years, every single day since November 7th of the year 2000, somebody has died on the highways in my state. And we're not proud of that. And So, this Safe Driver Week's very personal to me. I want us to be safe. I want our drivers to get home safe. And I want to encourage all the safety directors that are listening, owners of trucking companies, get on the front end of this initiative. Use the education. CVSA has some wonderful materials that they make free of charge for you to use for driver meetings, handouts. They've even got postcards you can distribute to your drivers. But have them be ready, because July 7th through the 13th, like Mike said, the enforcement's on during that time.
Well, you'd mentioned those educational materials and stuff, Kenny. For the last couple months, I actually got on the CVSA's website, and anybody could, just like you said, anybody can get on there and order this stuff. But I ordered a couple hundred of these postcards, and I'm showing the guys on the podcast. And they're pretty simple. It just outlines what Operation Safe Driver Week, when it is, what law enforcement's going to be looking at. It's got some statistics on the back about different types of crashes in 22 and in U.S., Canada, Mexico, things like that. But you can order these free of charge. They ship them right to you. And I've been, every driver meeting that I've been doing lately, or every safety meeting that I've been helping out with our clients, I've been taking these postcards and just handing them out. And that may not be the full focus of what our safety meeting is about, but I'm certainly sharing that information and saying, hey, this is coming up in July. And I kind of made a comment earlier in the podcast today that I said it's kind of business as usual for the commercial motor vehicles. And I didn't want to, I don't say that lightly. What I meant by that was, for you guys, I know that we're out there operating as safely as we possibly can. Every time we get into a truck, every time we're running down the highway. So we thank you for that. This is just one of those times. And as Kenny said, and I was talking about it earlier, where it's the traffic around the truck. But there is a point that I do want to reinforce that Kenny made. They're not just going to be looking at that traffic around the truck. They're also going to be looking at your behavior as well. So it really is, we have to be on our A game. There's going to be increased enforcement there. They're certainly going to be looking at unsafe operations around your truck. But, if there's any unsafe operations inside your truck or anything that you're doing, they're certainly going to enforce any regulations upon you as well, because they're going to be looking at that. And it's the things that we see every day, guys, right? It's speeding, distracted driving, those unsafe lane changes, things like this. A lot of times when, just one of us, when we're on the road and we're driving, you can see these reckless, careless, or dangerous driving actions out there on the road, and they're not hard to see. You don't have to drive too many miles down the road before you see something like this. Somebody on their phone, somebody kind of weaving in and out of a lane, something like that. And we just need, because we're talking to you guys as our audience, you guys are the professional truck drivers. So when we're talking to you, this stuff. That when you get in that truck, from the moment you put your seatbelt on to, a couple hundred miles down the road, that you're on your A game, and you're operating as safely as you possibly can. But as Kenny said, it's near and dear to us. And we've talked about this in some other podcasts, and I always kind of like to make things personal. When we're talking safety, it's like sometimes you can get that 30,000 foot view can get to where you lose sight of why we're doing what we're doing. But if you make this personal, think about, I mentioned earlier that our miles traveled kind of peak in July. It's because there's a lot of folks out on the road. There's a lot of people vacationing. There's a lot of kids that are out of school that are traveling. Think about what your family's doing this summer. Think about your high school kids that are going to their summer jobs, or think about your college kids that maybe they're taking a trip with their friends, or the vacation you might be taking. Think about your family members, the people that you care about, the people you love, and think about the miles that they're going to be traveling, where they may be going, and why the things that we talk about regarding safety really matter. And Kenny hit it on the head. It's to reduce crashes. I always put it this way: it's to protect life. It's to reduce the crashes, the fatalities, the injuries. But ultimately, our goal is that we protect life. So that's why these weeks, these emphasis weeks, where we truly focus on this and we start having real conversations about safety, especially safety around commercial motor vehicles, is important for all of us.
Yeah. And Mike, and we haven't even mentioned the topic of road rage yet, but so many of these reckless driving incidents ultimately result in this generic term that we've, come to use called road rage. And again, at every state defines reckless driving and road rage. Some states have even passed road rage laws. We don't have one in Texas yet. It doesn't mean we don't have road rage. We do. But just think, just settle in for just a moment and try to put yourself in the position where you've been so angry, so mad at somebody when you were driving. But think about the consequences, not just the legal consequences, but let it just come to life. Make it real for you that, okay, if somebody rams another car with their car, do you think that's just going to go away? No, law enforcement's going to respond to that. People are going to get in trouble. People are going to be hurt. And at some point, you'll look back in retrospect and say, that's the dumbest thing I ever did in my life. So think through it beforehand. Get ahead of it, and if something like that happens, just be man or woman enough to ignore it and get on down the road, because that ultimately the consequences of that. I live in a very rural county in the eastern part of Texas. And just over the past several months, we have had 2 road rage incidents. Interstate 20 runs through my county, east-west. And we've had 2 road rage incidents not involving anybody from my county, but people passing through. And in both cases, it involved a commercial motor vehicle and a 4-wheeler, and somebody in the 4-wheeler died in both situations. And both truck drivers have been charged with criminal offenses. And I guarantee you, they got up that morning that happened just with the thought of delivering their load that day. And that didn't happen. They ended up in an East Texas jail, and neither one of them's even from Texas. So just imagine they let the heat of the moment completely destroy their lives. Not just their career, not just that day. Their lives are destroyed over a temper that just flared and got out of hand over a driving incident. I guarantee you both of those, and it was men, both of those men could look back right now. If we could talk to them on this podcast, both of them would say, if I had to do it all over again, I definitely would not do what I've done. Yeah. So, I encourage our drivers. I know some of you professional y'all know I'm the son of a truck driver, and I got 2 brothers that drive. There's things out here that people do that make y'all madder than you can even verbalize. But guys, you're a professional. You just got to let it go and get on down the road and let that car go, and don't worry about, just you got to think about it ahead of time so you don't respond the incorrect way when it happens.
Yeah, you got to take that deep breath, like you said, Kenny. Let it go. Don't feel like, if I don't respond, somebody's getting the better of me. Let them get the better of you. Let them get away from you. Take that deep breath. Calm yourself down, because the alternative is the situation you just described. Because the best thing that you can do as a commercial motor vehicle driver out there right now is allow things like this Operation Safe Driver Week that's going on, where there's increased enforcement, watching for that kind of stuff. Let law enforcement do their job. Let them take care of that kind of things. Because just like Kenny said, we know you guys are out there and you see this. I would hate to even think how many times a day something happens that really would just get your blood boiling. And so we commend you all out there for keeping your head, for staying cool, for staying calm, and being those professional drivers. We understand how hard that is, but we just want to reiterate how extremely important it is, because just these 2 scenarios that Kenny just talked about down there with life and death situations, it changed, as you said, changed the course of someone's life, not just their career. And so we commend you all for the professional jobs that you do, and we just want to encourage you to keep doing that. And in those moments where somebody in a 4-wheeler, those passenger vehicles running up down the road, do something that they shouldn't be doing, take the high road, and don't get wrapped up in somebody else's accident. Just get away from them the best that you can. You're out there to do a job and to do it safely, and it certainly doesn't involve escalating a road rage incident by any means. So, Jim, Operation Safe Driver Week coming up. I know you've got one of your kids is driving now. Is this something that things like this, these focus weeks that come up, is this something you talk with your kids about as they're hitting the driving age and getting out there in their vehicles themselves?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I'm not an overprotective or extremely safety-minded father, but that would be false. As many of you guys that are parents as well know. My daughter's 14 and she has a farm permit. And so what that farm permit grants her is the ability to drive on behalf of the farm or directly to and from school. And it's about 4 miles on a dirt road to school. And so that's not the part that necessarily concerns me as much as if I was to have her do something for farm activities. This week is a good week, a reminder of cell phone use and negative habits behind the wheel. And we have these conversations not just during this week, but often. And so I think you just gave me a pretty good challenge here, Mike, to maybe show my daughter what I do for a living a little bit more and share some of these stats with her and why it's important. I'm lucky that my daughter drives a 2.5 liter 1997 Jeep Wrangler that doesn't even get to 50 miles an hour, but that doesn't mean she shouldn't be aware of good practices on the road and watching out for others.
That's a good point you make, Jim. I was talking with my friends the other day. We were talking about the issue of how a lot of states have kind of got rid of the driving or the training programs for young people coming up through high school, the driver's education, things like that. They've kind of gotten away from it. And we were talking about how you see people out on the road that oftentimes maybe aren't the best drivers. And then those people that maybe aren't the best drivers are now either teaching their kids how to drive. So we've got a compounding issue there. It's like, all right, well, we go back to what we were talking about with our drivers earlier and the things they see and the poor driving skills that may be out there on the road with them, things that might frustrate them. There's an educational aspect there that I think some of us recognize and more of us probably should recognize, just like what you're talking about, Jim, where you just talk to your kids about not just safe driving of their vehicle, but understanding commercial motor vehicles. I think that's is an extremely valuable piece of information to have, especially for young drivers to learn right when they're starting driving, is just the simple things of, a truck's blind spots, how they can't get stopped as quickly as you can in your vehicle, and how to not just hang out right next to them and, get up on the left side of them and just hang out there for 10 miles. I mean, how to drive around these vehicles and how to be safe doing it. And it's something that I don't remember when I was that age, anybody ever talking to me about it. I grew up in a rural area and, it's not like I was out on interstates driving when I was a teenager, but certainly had trucks running around and nobody ever really talked to me about that kind of thing. And we had driver's ed back when I was a kid and it just wasn't something that was talked to us about, but I think that's important. So if you're listening out there, even if you're a professional truck driver, I'm sure you guys are sharing this with your kids, but if you're listening to us and you've got kids coming up that are driving age or maybe even older than that, talk to them about how to operate their vehicles safely around these trucks. I think that's really important because I think sometimes, Kenny, you were talking about these road rage issues and that certainly causes some accidents, but sometimes some of these accidents are caused just by people just simply not understanding how to operate safely around one of these trucks. They pull in front of them too quickly. They get in a blind spot. It's things that they honestly don't know, and they probably should.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Mike. And I know a lot of people in four-wheelers get frustrated, particularly when they're on the interstate and you've got one of our LTL carriers that are pulling doubles and he decided he's going to pass another LTL pulling doubles and it takes him 5 or 6 miles to get around because one of them's running 57 miles an hour and the other one's running 59 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And four-wheelers stack up behind them, and other truck drivers are cussing them on the CB, but it's just, it's the reality of the world we live in, but all of us have just got to let it go. And Mike, I'm going to get off here and let you close, but before you do close, one last time, you mentioned an amazing resource from CVSA for the safety directors that are listening. Tell them how they can get those postcards and get them sent to them, and tell them the process for doing that, please.
Yeah, I've got a stack of them right here in my hand, and you just go to CVSA's website. If you go to cvsa.org/programs/Operation Safe Driver Week, and then when you get on that page, it'll show there'll be a tab for the focus areas, and it'll talk about reckless, careless, or dangerous driving. It'll show some stats, but down at the bottom of that page, there'll be a little arrow, and it says, go to the 2024 Operation Safe Driver Week postcards online order form. Real simple process. You click that, put your information in there, tell them how many you want, hit send, and 3 or 4 days later, you'll get them in the mail. And that's something as you're, whether you're a safety director, anybody can get these, but you can get them for, if you've got multiple terminals, get them for your terminal managers. It's something that you can hand your drivers, have a quick conversation with them about the emphasis week, Operation Safe Driver Week, July 7th through the 13th. Tell them what it's about and have a meaningful conversation with them about that. It's just something that is a tool that you can use to get that. And along with that, when you guys go to that webpage, you guys that are listening to us out there, you go to that webpage, there's additional information in there you can get as well. There's other resources. There's videos, PSAs, things like that on there. So get on CVSA's website, snoop around on there. But if you want those postcards, which are just a great tool to have, you can hand a driver, you can hand one of your operations folks, you can hand anybody in your company one of these cards and just say, hey, by the way, Operation Safe Driver Week's coming up. Here's the focus area. This is what it's about. We want everybody to get home safe every day. And it's just a great tool to use, a great opportunity for you to take there. So
my clients in Texas would be interested to know that those are available in Spanish as well. They're not just in English. You can get them in Spanish. That's right. And I don't know that I'd have to ask Aaron and Amanda. I don't know if we have any listeners in Canada or not, but they're available in French as well. But we definitely can get them in Spanish for down here in Texas.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. And again, just a great tool to utilize. And we'll put the link on this podcast as well, the CVSA's webpage, so you guys can have that. But check that out. And just remember, the goal of this for you guys listening to us, all of our drivers out there, our safety directors, our owners of our companies, the goal of this is that we want to get everybody home safe every day they're out there on the road. And that's not just our drivers, that's everybody out there that we're sharing the road with. We've got a responsibility as the professionals in the business to do the best we can to operate as safely as possible. And in the end, we want to see the trends in these crashes, specifically those fatal crashes, begin to come down. So, and I know a big part of that is you guys out there doing the job that you do. And again, we can't thank you enough for the job that you do. We respect all of our drivers all across this country so much. Kenny said it earlier. He's got such a tremendous respect for this industry, and so do Jim and I. Can't tell you how much we respect it. We know you've got a tough job, and oftentimes it's a thankless job, but we'll take a second right here today on this podcast just to say thank you for what you do. And I want you to know that we see you out there, that we notice you. So keep up the good job, keep up the good work, and get home safe at night. Hug your family up. Hug your kids up, hug your spouses up. That's what it's all about, getting home safe. So,
you bet.
Guys, we appreciate you so much joining us. We enjoy getting on here and talking safety with you, and we love what we do. We love this industry, and we certainly have enjoyed this time with you today. Join us next time. We'll have another great topic for you. We'll get together, and Jim and Kenny and I will discuss more safety related issues in the trucking industry. But for now, that's all we've got for you today. But please join us next time. We look forward to seeing you, and be safe from all of us here at Driving the Line.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and thank you for listening. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Driving the Line, The Pursuit of Safety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other app you're using. You can also follow Marsh McLennan Agency on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, thanks again for listening. Drive safely, everyone.